Hey. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Sales Manager Academy. I'm your host, Omar. And today I want to talk about why I'm doing this. I want to talk about why I've found a need to create content, to want to help other sales leaders, specifically those in the wireless industry. And you can call them like middle managers. They're really executive leadership, but those in district roles, in regional director roles, because what I've seen in the wireless industry, and I'm not talking about companies in corporate, right? So I'm not talking about the big three now, right? It used to be the big four, but I'm talking about the smaller companies, the resellers, the ones that actually make a difference and actually own and operate the majority of retail stores that are out there. Uh, You'd be surprised, up until recently, up until a few years ago, AT&T was the only one that had majority corporate locations as opposed to majority retail or resellers, right? Authorized retailers or authorized resellers, depending on who you're talking to, also known as dealers. Um, but that's changed. Now they don't have majority corporate stores. They've been reducing the number of corporate stores that they have in their portfolio. So that makes a big difference. And one of the big differences is the level of training and resources that individuals have. When you're using a larger distribution network and there are smaller corporations, a lot of these resellers have less than 300 doors nationwide. Um, so you may not think, oh, that's not a lot. But when you're talking about, you know, hundreds of retailers across the US that work for these larger companies or have contracts with these larger companies, it means that they don't always have the resources available to truly operate in a way that's going to be efficient and give some kind of effective leadership training to organizations or to their people in the organization. And that leaves a lot of room for want. And a lot of people don't understand why some of these retail locations don't have like the best employees, or they're severely understaffed, or what are they missing? I've gone through that myself. I've been a district, I've been a director in director roles, and I've done hiring, recruiting, not just in a small district. I've done it for regions across the U.S. West Coast, East Coast. So I've gotten a lot of knock background and working knowledge as to some of the missing items, the missing pieces that make a difference in how organizations are ran, and in the level of experience that employees have within the organization. So when you're talking about, for instance, new hire training, most people think just doing whatever the big carrier is offering is good enough, that they're going to learn the rest on the job. That is partly true. When you don't have a structured system to actually train and develop people in, then there's a lot that goes by the wayside that you being in the organization and having done this for so long feel is only natural and common sense, but you forget that these people aren't from the organization and they're not typically from the industry, or maybe the niche that they were in was slightly different. So what is common sense to you isn't common sense to them, and it takes time to train and develop that. My new hire training program that I developed, 90-day period. That's what I focused on. And I was upfront with them. I was like, hey, we're going to go through and we're going to do 90 days worth of training. The first 14 days are going to essentially be a lot of knowledge that you're going to go through because you have to do a lot of this basic stuff that's required. Um, and then your real training begins after the first 2 weeks. I don't expect you to be fully trained up in the entirety of what we're doing. What I expect is that by the end of 90 days, that you're going to be about 80% competent, compared to a veteran that's been here for years, or somebody like myself that's been with the organization for years. You're going to be about 80%. The rest of the 20% is going to take some time. It's going to take about a year or two for you to really get that additional 20% because it's going to be a lot of things that pop up that don't generally happen very often, right? And you need a little bit more training, a little bit more experience under your belt. Now, if you have sales experience, if you have wireless industry experience, maybe that time's going to be up. It's going to take less time. But here's the thing, even if you do have some type of experience, we're a different organization than the others. So SOPs are different. The way we operate are going to be slightly different. Things are going to be very similar, but they're also going to be different. So you have to learn those differences. You have to get comfortable with what's going to be different here as opposed to where you're coming from. And it can be difficult for a district manager that doesn't feel that they have the support from the leadership, doesn't feel that they have the resources and support from the organization. And they're not going to say this, right? If you're listening to this, if you're a district manager, retail, right, in the retail world, especially in the wireless industry, um, I guarantee that you feel like that. I've spoken to regional directors, right, that feel the exact same way and understand that. So they want to do things their way, and they want to kind of be covert about it, like, oh yeah, I'm going to do things, and that's not the way to go about things. First off, right? If you're going to try something different, try it. Don't hide it, because that makes a difference, right? Your team understands that you're doing something a little bit different. And you're being upfront about it. Like, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to try this. This is the reason why I'm trying it. That's the reason I feel that we need it. And you guys are going to be better for it. Because at the end of the day, if you're training and developing your team and their performance skyrockets and they become better as a leader, that actually is, it really makes you shine, right? Speaks volumes to what you're capable of doing as a leader. And that's what you want to focus on. That's where you want to come in and be like, okay, we're going to make a difference. This is what I'm going to do. This is the level of support I'm going to offer. This is the things I wish I had starting off, that I didn't. I've talked about how I developed my sales process through essentially how I worked myself, right? Goal setting, the way I, made different frameworks, the way I focused on the things that I saw were giving me better results more often. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to sales or any kind of job or position where you require some kind of conversion from, you know, interaction to converting, whether, you know, it's paying subscriber, customer, whether it's, getting them to join, whatever the case is, okay? You're going to realize, and if you don't, there's an issue, but you're going to realize that there's certain interactions that follow almost the same routine. And that's what you want to focus on, and that's what you want to pick up on. And that's where you start seeing differences. Having a structured training and development program means that you're focusing more on the things that are proven to work more often than not. It doesn't mean it's going to work 100% of the time. And that's where things get lost in the rut because people think, okay, this is going to work 100% of the time. I don't need it to work 100% of the time. I just need it to work 60% of the time. Because if it works a majority of the time, then I can just hone in on that and I'm making better use of my time. As a seller, I'm making more, right? I'm spending less time spinning my wheels, wasting time, wasting people's times, and actually making better connections and moving the conversation forward with the people I'm actually interacting with. And that's what you want to focus on. Then from there, you're focusing in on the different KPIs, right? Training and developing, that does take time. In my experience, even though I would give my new hires 90 days to be able to learn the majority of what we did, I found that within 30 to 45 days, they were pretty much already there. And the level of confidence, that boost in confidence that they received, knowing that, hey, I actually hit all this stuff way ahead of when I was supposed to. I mean, it's amazing. Like that boost alone increases the productivity of that individual because they're now believing in themselves. The thing is that the reason it works is the psychology behind it is that oftentimes people aren't guided and mentored and they're not shown a way forward to succeed. So they always feel that they're lagging behind. They always feel deficient. And when they're giving a task, they're shown the ropes in a sense, and they're the ones taking the wheel and driving forward with it. And then coming out ahead of schedule, that gives them almost like a chip on their shoulder. It gives them that confidence that they didn't feel that they had before. And even though they won't come out and say it, you can see it in their performance because it truly translates over to it. Even with people that don't have a wireless background, don't have a sales background, or they maybe just have a basic generic customer service background, worked in like food or something like that. It helps because now you're also training them to focus on what's important and you're giving them a roadmap to success. That's where it becomes repeatable. And as I started off, right, the reason I've started to do this and focusing on this is because I see the pain. I've been there myself. I've been with an organization that was at 200 doors when I joined. And I saw how everything was just pretty much slapped together, with, not even duct tape, right? It was falling apart at the seams, but it still kept moving forward. You know, 300 doors, 500 doors, 600 doors. When I left, I think we were just shy of 700 doors. Uh, I've been part of multi-billion dollar companies where I see almost the same thing. Things are, thrown away or thrown together haphazardly and stuck together with, duct tape, where one bad month, the entire, the floor is going to come. It's just going to fall through. And I've seen that. So it's not well, if the company has more money, it can do this. It's a matter of where priorities lie. And unless you yourself are able to bring this to fruition and show results, it's never really going to be something that becomes a focal point for a lot of the owners, because they're owner operators at first, right? They're working on the business as well as in the business. Um, and then as they grow and expand, they're able to just work on the business instead of in the business. But that's also where a lot of things are lost because they expect their people to continue what they were doing. And what you realize as an owner of any kind of company, any type of business, is that no one is as committed to the organization as you because no one has what you have writing on it. But on the same time, they don't want the organization to fail because that is how they make their income. They just aren't getting what you're getting out of it, and there is nothing wrong. They don't have to be devoted, wholeheartedly to your endeavors. We need to be wholeheartedly invested in making sure our teams succeed. That's where we want to make sure. Because if they succeed, I'm going to succeed. If I succeed as a district regional director, then obviously the organization continues to move forward and we can expand, we can grow. There's more resources available. Listen, I've expanded my teams in every single district I've been in a very short period of time, where I've practically almost doubled the number of employees within my districts. Where people thought it could not happen before, I proved them wrong. And I didn't prove them wrong by being a dick about things. I didn't prove them wrong by being a hard ass and, making everybody work, to the bone. I did it, one, by being human, realizing my team needs structure. I am an advocate for my team. I'm an advocate for my people. So that's what I did. Put something together, make sure that they understood that they were being looked after. Doesn't mean I'm their BFF. Doesn't mean I'm their best friend, right? Because, hey, at the end of the day, we're on a team. And yes, we need to perform to be able to make sure the team moves forward to that next scale, to that next echelon of what we're trying to succeed. And if we can't do that, then something's got to give, right? Something's not working that we need to change. And if it's not changing, if it's not working, then how are we going to know what's what? So we got to track results. We got to track and be very upfront and inspect what we expect, right? So understanding your KPIs, knowing what those KPIs are, seeing those KPIs change month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year, right? Keeping track of that is very important because what you as a district or regional director think of your salespeople is very biased, right? You have a gut feeling that the performance is great. But when you look at the numbers and you can actually see the trends over time, you can see where performance is improving, decreasing, and you're able to speak to different things. Because if you see across the board that performance in a particular area is lagging across the entire region, it's easy to dissect what's going on, right? If you see, at a particular region, particular area, particular store, performance is dragging, you can speak to it and find out like what is it? What is going on? Is it a traffic issue? Is it a performance issue? Right? What is going on? I had a location that had, another corporate location open up not too far away from it, and it ended up taking a lot of their traffic. And then we ended up moving the location to another spot, and because it was on a busier street, even though it was still close to a corporate location, business started to improve, right? So as much as I would want to come down and be like, hey, I'm going to get down on, get on you for performance to the store manager and the team, being realistic and understanding what the difference is. Like, okay, I get it. We have another white space opening up soon. That things are going to be different. We just got to push through. We got to focus on what we can control. If we can't control the number of door swings we get, we can at least control the number of outbound outreach we're doing and focusing in on trying to get past customers in, checking in, see how they're doing, business accounts in the area. We can do more than just staying here complaining. And part of my goal is I'm also going to work with you guys to bring that in because I'm involved in the community, right? Business organizations, networking events, chamber of commerce, um, and that's how you yourself as a leader can show your team that you're supporting and you're trying to do everything you can to help them move forward as well. You're not just relying on them to be the face of the organization when they're stuck behind four walls or very limited because of, manpower, right? Because of the number of employees we have, because of a head count. And that's where things go, right? I don't think I've ever, once I've taken stores over, it was very rare for me to have a location with less than four employees, right? The average I think I had was like a manager and at least five people, and I had assistant managers in most of my locations. If you're coming from the authorized retail world, that is not common, right? I've been out of the game, out of the wireless retail, but I still peep in, still help out, uh, do contract work or consulting work. But the fact that that still happens where I still see companies have a manager and two employees and wonder why, things are a little bit tight. It's because we're not focusing in and expanding on the training and development. So where we could be essentially capitalizing, especially now where things are done online more than ever. People, don't get me wrong, people are still going into locations to get devices, to get phones. That part I don't think is ever going to go away because people, one, want the instant gratification of being able to buy it and take it with them right away. Two, not everybody is tech savvy and knows how to run through, a online platform, especially one that they visit maybe, once every 2 or 3 years or longer, right? Because I believe the upgrade cycles now, even with the iPhone, it's lagging. It's getting closer to about 3 to 4 years for upgrades, right? So activations are a huge thing. Add-ons, right? Which are not a lot of VGAs. We're talking wearables, tablets, and obviously the VGAs are still like a big thing for everybody because that's where the growth is. But obviously, you got to also understand there's only so much limited growth because the market one is saturated. So at this point, we're just taking customers from each other. There's nothing wrong with that. Where growth is, and this is kind of, a little bit of food for thought for you guys if you're not focusing in on it, is in the business world. Because where mom and dad want to decrease their bill because their kids are off now on their own, married, businesses want to expand and grow. And as they expand and grow, they have more needs for different types of services. And I'm not just talking about phones, right? I remember back home, one of my customers was a water district. And this is before IoTs were a big thing. And sell them brand new line, right? And they just come pick up the chip and because they had their own devices and it would monitor and track the level of the water and it would notify them, right? When things were above or below a certain mark. And it's that kind of outside thinking that as a leader, you need to help your team understand. But that doesn't happen without a structure, training, and development because you can't expect them to do that on day one. They have to have a strong foundation of the basics. before we can move them to that level and actually have them be proficient. Because relationship building is big. And if they're the ones in, handling that, it requires a little bit of knowledge of what's going on, right? It requires a little bit of knowing who to reach out to, who can assist with this on the back end, which one of my partners is going to be best person to reach out to, who's not going to screw me over, right? Because you guys know this. You're working with your vendor partners, you're working with the corporate employees on the business side. Some of them will be able to help you, some of them won't, right? Some of them are, and they may not do it intentionally, but it just hey, how are you going to know? Once you submitted it, how are you going to know? That was always the biggest thing for us. How the hell do we know? Because we never saw things close, but when you kept it in-house, boom, stuff would close. Um, and then it would grow from there. So that's always a big one. But once again, having a structured training and development program goes a long way. And not just making sure that your team has a working foundation that's repeatable. I can bring in a group of 5 to 10 employees and be able to train them to an extent where the majority of them are performing at above break even levels within 30 to 45 days. And within 90 days, essentially the entire team that came on board, they're good, they're solid because it was training and development. As opposed to the method of let me just hire who I feel is going to be a good hire. Um, and then let me run them through these 2 weeks. Let me get them the courses, and I'm just going to throw them with somebody who's going to teach them on this floor. That person on the floor doesn't know how to teach other people because they themselves don't have an actual training and development program. They don't have a regiment for that. You might think that they're good at training people. That may not be the case, right? I can't throw 5 people in that location and allow them to be able to get taken care of, right? I've always had training stores where I would put them in with a manager, but I didn't rely on just the manager to do everything. I would lead the courses where once, twice a week, they would all come into this one location and we would have a structured training program for the day. And it would be, a couple hours long, nothing too crazy. And we would focus on 1 or 2 things max, right? A little bit of background and then role playing and help them essentially get certified in that, right? Because now, okay, we can do this. All right, now I can do this. And then follow up on what they learned. And that's, the managers that they were going back to, the teams that they were going back to understood like, all right, they're going over this information. So when they come back, hey, this is what we're going to focus on. I know what to do as the person that's supposed to be leading them and training them. And then the employee knows that they have a good understanding of the roadmap to success. It's been laid out for them. And I'm giving them milestones to attain. I am not telling them to do this exactly, right? Because that's the hardest part for people to do things exactly. What we want to do is we want to break things down into small, bite sized chunks where they can internalize the information, personalize the information to themselves, and have a working knowledge of what we just went over. That becomes repeatable. When you have a framework, that becomes repeatable. And that's where a lot of small organizations don't have. A lot of smaller wireless authorized retailers, and it's not just the wireless game, right? I know a lot of other companies that are small mom and pop shops that have multiple stores in a city or a town that is essentially the same, right? They don't have a system to truly expand and grow that is trainable, that is repeatable. They are ran by people that maybe you got lucky as an owner and you got somebody who has this and can do this. The majority of people don't. So it's like continuing. We're just going to keep pushing forward. We're going to keep pushing forward. And then they wonder why they can't find qualified people to hire. It's not necessarily about the pay grade. Okay. I'm going to flat out say that right now. If you're complaining and saying it's about the pay grade, That is maybe 20% of the time, especially when it comes to a sales position where you're earning commissions, right? That's not the 80% of what's keeping people from wanting to join you, or the reason why the majority of your new hires end up leaving before 90 days. If you feel that you're constantly churning out interviews and you're constantly having to hire new people, it is not necessarily a thing about money. What it is you don't have anything in place to train and develop people to make them feel that there is growth or a future. At the very minimum, that they're at least people, right? If you think of fast food restaurants that succeed very well, one, obviously, they're known for not necessarily the pay, but for having a system in place that's repeatable. That's a huge thing. I'm a big fan of In-N-Out. I love In-N-Out, right? Uh, and I used to have back in high school a buddy that lived, breathed In-N-Out. And I remember this like remember this conversation to this day because how crazy he was about In-N-Out. Um, it was a fact that not only did they have like a certain regiment, right? Everybody rotates stations, but if you're at a station, you're at a station, you're not jumping between stations. We're keeping this line just moving forward because that's the most efficient thing for the company. And how busy they were and how they've kept their prices relatively low for a very long time, compared to other companies in the same industry, right? Compared to McDonald's, Jack in the Box, all that stuff. And the food is fresh. If you guys don't know this, the reason why In-N-Out doesn't expand super far the way they could is they truck all their ingredients, especially meat, early in the morning. So the furthest a store can be from a distribution center is about 100 miles. That is the reason why they don't expand as fast as they could, is because they have certain requirements in order to make sure that they keep their standards up. Um, and then obviously the culture is there because there's growth opportunity. People can move up. Their pay is actually very decent compared to, other companies, right? But you still have people that work, at McDonald's, at Jack in the Boxes. So that's why I say I know for a fact if you can't hire people in your locations, and if you're like a wireless retail location, it is not about the pay. It has to do with training and development. If you're constantly churning people away because they're getting fired for underperformance, they're quitting because they can't deal with the stress or the pressure, uh, there is no training, there is no development happening. Training and development decreases the rate of churn you have for employees quitting and leaving. It increases the performance of employees coming on board. It remarkably, I don't know if people know this or not, improves the performance of your veteran employees. Those markets that I've doubled in employee size practically almost doubled, if not went up by like 50% in performance. And I didn't fire anybody. I mean, I didn't replace the entire district, right? There are a couple unfortunate employees that had to leave, right? But one or two people. But I doubled in one district, the number of literally doubled the number of employees we had. Where even though I had less than or about half of the locations that a normal district would have, I had as many, if not more, employees because my performance was there, because training and development was there. There is a push to do this. You just don't know it yet. If you're wondering what is the missing ingredient, what is happening? Why can't I do, I know my district capable of doing it. I know that's capable of growing. What is holding me back? What is holding my team back? It is a performance thing and it's training and development. That goes a long way. Now, if you haven't checked out my site yet, right, I'll leave a link. Well, check the link in the bio first off. I'll leave, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll leave a link in the description where you can get one of my training frameworks. Download it, use it. Okay. It's a very easy to read sheet. There is a lot more nuance to it, but at the very minimum, you have something to run off of and you can try to figure it out. Or if you want support, hey, reach out, let me know. I'm actually in the process of launching a new course that's going to be available for district managers, regional directors, right, depending on what your role is, for you to be able to use and learn this information in a much easier self-paced fashion and get certified at the end as a wireless district manager capable of leading, training, and developing teams. And that goes a long way. You would be surprised how just a little bit of effort at the beginning saves you so much headache and heartache on the back end. So I'll leave it there, right? If you guys have any questions, I love, learning and listening to people, learning kind of what you're going through and seeing how we can work together to get you forward, right? Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That way you guys always get notified of these coming out. Uh, and shoot me a DM, shoot me a message, let me know. I'll catch you guys on the next one.